Prime Big Deal Days are here with 2 days of big savings exclusively for Prime members. You'll feel like a VIP.
Right this way. Your hairdryer deal is waiting.
Sweet. Deals from clothes to electronics. It's on Prime Big Deal Days, October 11th and 12th.
Things in the NHL are heating up, and things in the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast Lab are also on the rise, including all of the top fantasy news that you need from around the world of the NHL. On the Wednesday episode, what's going on with the Leafs and Sens rosters, injury updates, Jake Muzzin back on the ice, and of course, big-time bets. Let's tap in. Let's get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You heard the music, and you know what time it is. It's time for your source for fantasy hockey news and degenerate daily gambling breakdowns, the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, joined as always by my esteemed co-host, Mr. Steele Roden. And on this side of the microphone, it's your boy, Big Flip Livingstone. Thank you for making us your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Steele, there ain't no sleeping on what's going on in the NHL already. A couple of games last night, 6 games on tap tonight. We got our bets rolling out the door every single night. Shout out to our friends from FanDuel, of course. But there are some interesting roster news, little bits and tidbits coming out here, especially, I'd say, from this Ottawa Senators club. Shane Pinto still not under contract. Josh Norris still not healthy. And all of a sudden, the pressure is back on in Ottawa. It was weird. A lot of chirps, a lot of talks coming out of the nation's capital in this offseason, Steele. It's a little bit quiet right now, and we haven't even dropped the puck yet. Let's talk about that. We'll talk quickly about the Leafs, a bunch of minor things. We got a rookie breaking into the starting lineup. We got Jake Muzzin retiring, Matt Murray getting hurt, a little trade, and of course, your prediction comes to fruition. Jake Muzzin ahead of schedule, right back on that top power play unit, right back playing alongside Sidney Crosby, I believe. We'll talk about that. Wrap the show with big-time bets. Throw it right over to you, though. Where would you like to start, Sens or Leafs? Both have some interesting news to break down here.
Let's start with the Ottawa Senators because I think that's the bigger news out of both.
Agreed.
Because, again, Josh Norris injured. He's already on the IR, or he's been moved to the IR to start the season. We don't know how much of time he'll be spending on the injured reserve list. And then Shane Pinto, like you said, it's been long awaiting for him to get under contract. He still isn't under contract. And this really does affect their entire lineup because something that was supposed to be a powerhouse for them, their center position, right, with Timmy Stützle, with Josh Norris, with Shane Pinto, is now a weakness, a big weakness at that, because going into the lineup, you've got Ridley Gregg, who is now the second line centerman for the time being. Rourke Chartier, who I've never heard before, is the third line center playing with Kubalik and Tarasenko. So something that was supposed to be a powerhouse for these Ottawa Senators is now a huge weakness for them, that center position. So not having Josh Norris, who's fully healthy, is going to sting to begin the season. Not having Shane Pinto under contract is going to hurt them a lot as well in the bottom 6 group. And then we just saw, a tweet from our pals over there on the Locked On Sens podcast network that, looking back at it now, going out and signing Vladimir Tarasenko before, addressing all the things that need to be done internally it might hinder the Ottawa Senators' success to start the season off in October, maybe even go into November. They got to start off the season right. They got to start off the season strong. They haven't done that the past 5 years.
Yeah.
And this is going to hurt them a lot. Again, something that was supposed to be a strength is now a weakness.
And now all of a sudden, Steele, let's be real. We liked, and especially myself, what the Ottawa Senators were starting to do with this roster. And obvious studs in that lineup in Timmy Stützle, Brady Tkachuk, and others. We've talked a lot about the blue line. We like the Korpisalo ad. But some of these quotes coming out of this Ottawa camp on this situation is a little bit strange. Everyone involved never saw this coming, Coach Smith says the other day. We all thought Josh would be good to go with a little bit of practice, take a few bumps, get a couple of exhibition games, and away we go. And that just didn't happen, end quote. no exhibition games under his belt. Now he's back on LTIR. This is just one of those things, Steele, that things start to line up on paper and they don't pan out on the ice. Yeah. So quite obviously up the middle, there is a weakness for this Ottawa Senators team, and going up against the likes of the Toronto Maple Leafs, Tampa Bay Lightning, and others who have obvious strengths in that center position and all around in their top six. I'm not saying the Ottawa Senators season is over by any stretch of the imagination, not even close. But if they get off to a slow start, Tarasenko struggles out the gate, which they've already alluded to. This is going to be a pressure-on situation, but a team that we know that's already dealing with that same kind of pressure cooker situation for a number of reasons is the Toronto Maple Leafs, Steele. Yes. And, of course, Matt Murray expected. No one was going after Matt Murray. He's out 6 to 8 months with another surgery. Jake Muzzin retires. No fantasy takes there. Kudos due to a really good NHL blue liner, just so banged up. Yeah. Good on him for stepping away from the game. And the Lafferty trade, obviously more under the radar. But I think what's interesting here, Steele, especially with them moving on from Lafferty, which is, say what you will about that. They did pay a high price to bring him in, and they only get, I think, a 5th rounder back in exchange. But this Minton kid, is it Fraser Minter, I believe, Steele?
Fraser Minter, yeah.
This is a bit of an intriguing one because him slotting in on that third line with Matty Knies and Calle Jarnkrok, given that we know that a line of that nature could potentially be an offensively potent one, given all of the quality up in that top six, I just want to see what this does. Am I saying run out there and grab Fraser Minter? No, but in maybe some of those keeper dynasty leagues, Steele, if this kid's already getting a shot, you got to be having your eyes on this guy as an option.
Yeah, the Sam Lafferty trade pretty much had to be done because of how amazing Fraser Minter was doing in the preseason games in development camp. Everyone's been so impressed with what this kid's been able to do. So that third line with Matthew Knies, Fraser Minter, and Calle Jarnkrok is going to be very interesting to watch throughout this entire season, or at least the beginning of the season. Yeah, at least to start with. Because again, like what he was able to do to impress, the coaching staff, the GM, everybody in the organization who was trying to figure out what the roster was going to look like to start the season. It's been impressive to watch, and a lot of these young guys grow. It's going to be interesting to watch Matthew Knies and Fraser Minter play together. Calle Jarnkrok, a very underrated player in the NHL, maybe not fantasy wise, but underrated overall in the NHL for what he brings to the game. So I really like the making of this third line. Again, we already know what the first two lines look like with Max Domi and Tyler Bertuzzi on there. So I like it a lot. Again, they had to send Sam Lafferty away to get under the cap or, get some cap space relief in order to make room for Fraser Minter on this lineup. Because I believe they were talking about this the other day. They're starting the season, under the roster cap as well. I think they only have 21 or 22 players on their roster when they could have 24. But that's because of how over the cap they've been over the last year.
We saw that coming. We knew this was going to be one of the things Treliving was going to have to juggle. But just quickly on Minton, 38th overall 2022 draft pick, 67 points in 57 games last year for Kamloops. Let's see what he can do. Are we ready to hang jerseys in the rafters for this kid? Absolutely not. But we're just buying into the hype because of it's this time of year, baby, and that's what we do. But at the end of it all, Steele, we know what this team's success comes down to. It's the core four. Can they get it done? And can a goalie grab the reins here? Samsonov and Wall in the preseason have both looked a little shaky at times. I know it's preseason hockey, and I'm not going to write home about any of it. Samsonov also took a shot the other day in practice. He came out. It looked a little awkward. There are question marks, obviously, with this team too. But we will see very soon, won't we, including tonight when they take on the Habs. Might have a couple of picks from that game, Steele. That's teased to the end of the show and big-time bets. But what's not a tease is what's coming up right around the break, where we're going to talk about Jake Guentzel. Might slot in a quick chat about Steele's boy, Logan Couture, rumored to be on the move. Not a rumor. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. The NHL season is finally here. Everybody in the fantasy realm has been yearning for puck, and we absolutely love the NHL, and we know you do too, and that's why we got to tell you about the Sleeper app. The Sleeper app is the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network, and it's our go-to for daily fantasy sports, especially daily fantasy hockey. With Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash on daily fantasy, and that's what we're all about on this show, baby. So you got to be tapping into the Sleeper app. Use code LOCKEDONNHL, and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's Locked On NHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. You got to be checking out the Sleeper app. And today's episode is also brought to you by our friends at BetterHelp. Have you ever had a time in your life where your brain gets in the way of you doing what's good for you? Your thoughts are racing. You're trying to get more sleep, but you just can't fall asleep. It's happened to me all the time. What you might want to try out is giving up therapy that helps you. Go for BetterHelp. For example, learning positive coping skills, how to set boundaries that empower you for the best version of yourself. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try today. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to fit your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist, or switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Make your brain your friend with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNHL today to get 10% off your first month.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Make sure you hit the subscribe, hit the follow button, leave a 5-star review. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your favorite team from all 4 major sports leagues, including the NCAA, your team every single day. And we've got some more content coming up on this episode. Jake Guentzel makes his return. He's back, baby. He's back for the season opener for the Pittsburgh Penguins against the Chicago Blackhawks and Connor Bedard. That is going to be a very, very fun game to watch to start the season off. We're going to talk about Logan Couture potentially getting moved from the San Jose Sharks as well. And then we'll finish off with big-time bets.
Yes,
but Jake
sir.
Guentzel, like we talked about, he makes his return from that ankle injury, had ankle surgery just a month and 5 or 6 weeks ago. I believe it is, but he is back in order to start the season, back on the top line with Sidney Crosby and Brian Rust. And just like I said, once I know they were practicing with Erik Karlsson and Chris Letang on the first power play unit in practice and in preseason games and whatnot. But when Jake Guentzel comes back like he is, he's getting bumped up to that first power play unit, and Erik Karlsson looks to be like that guy that's going to be quarterbacking it on the power play as well.
What's also interesting, Steele, is there was comments out from Guentzel earlier this week, that he wants to stay in Pittsburgh. So there's a little bit of a love fest going on for the Penguins. This works out nicely for them, honestly, and this is huge for fantasy owners of Guentzel that probably were able to get him at a really good round. I saw him sliding down to like the 60th or 70th overall spot still, which I think is honestly a really great pickup because he's back and there might be a couple of days of growing pains, but you know what's going to help that? Number 87 in the middle, distributing, creating space for his boy on the left side. I really do think that right wing spot by the end of the season will be occupied by Rickard Rakell or even Riley Smith. I am not buying into Brian Rust as much as others are, but that's just me personally. I guess I just wanted to talk very quickly about what this means for the balance now, because you brought up that point. And now looking at these lines, the second power play unit, is it lethal? No, but it now has Chris Letang, Jeff Carter, Riley Smith, Rust, and they're trying out this Harkins kid. I think this is really going to do big things for them in the standings. We know the pressure's on in Pittsburgh. We've talked about the window for winning closing. We've talked about Tristan Jarry. This is a big feather in the cap for them. Let's see what they can do with it, though, to start off the season, because we know they're going to be in tough to make the postseason, going up against the Killers in that Metro division.
Yeah, and they're starting off the season against the team that actually that beat them last year in that random game for Chicago, but didn't make the playoffs because of it.
At the end of the season, that was wild.
At the end of the season, that was a wild one, but they started off against Connor Bedard. Connor Bedard versus Sidney Crosby is just going to be amazing to watch. Again, it's already happened, but we're recording a day early, so we haven't watched it yet, but we are excited for it. Do you have any last comments before Logan Couture?
All I was going to say is we've talked about the mediocrity of this team's power play and penalty kill ability. Last year, 21%, 14th best in the league. It's not awful, but this was clear piece of bringing in Erik Karlsson to try and address this, because we also know, Steele, even though they have Malkin, they got Sid, and they've got Gensel back and all of this, they also finished 16th in the NHL in scoring, behind a couple of clubs that I don't think you would think that would be ahead of them. Vancouver Canucks, Vegas Golden Knights, Carolina Hurricanes finished with more goals than the Pittsburgh Penguins. Yeah. So that's all I'm looking at is they brought in Erik Karlsson to distribute. They brought in Erik Karlsson to balance out their power play attacks. Let's see if that can get done. We're going to see it in a hurry, I have a feeling.
I think we will as well. And maybe we'll see a hurry with Logan Couture on the move from the San Jose Sharks. That is going to be very interesting as well. And he's also at that point in his career where he probably should be moved, because this is where you're going to get the most value out of him. He's 34 years old. He'll be 35 in March coming up in 2024. So he's on the older side, but he still brings a ton of production and fantasy value. 27 goals, 40 assists last year, 67 points in 82 games on a brutal San Jose Sharks team. He brings it on the power play. He brings the peripherals, 128 shots, 70 blocks, 198 hits. Again, getting it done on the power play as much as possible with what he was able to work with last year in San Jose. But again, this is a player that, as San Jose is starting to rebuild their roster, their team, their organization, he's got to be the most valuable player on the trade list. Maybe Tomas Hertl would be the next guy, or above Logan Couture on the value chart, but they don't have a lot of other options. And again, if they want to continue to rebuild this team properly, it's time to move on from Logan Couture. And he's also, again, trying to find his first Stanley Cup in the NHL before eventually he retires. So why not a team that is looking for a veteran presence, a physical presence on top of that as well? Go after Logan Couture, and San Jose gets a ton back from their captain. I
think that's just it, Steele. There's going to be a squad sniffing around for this guy's services. The one thing is he is currently on IR. I'm pretty sure he's banged
out week to week.
Yeah, but he has been in his career pretty steady and very, very much a guy that has been relied on year in and year out to get it done, both on and off the ice. He's a leader. I really like his game. I really like what he still brings fantasy when he's healthy. It's an interesting angle, though, because I really like this William Eklund kid in San Jose. Yeah, Tomas Hertl is there. They're giving Filip Zadina another look. There's not exactly a ton going on to love with San Jose. So you can't help but feel that GM Mike Grier is going to want to continue to shuffle the deck. He did that with his other big piece in Erik Karlsson. Clearly, I think it's only really a matter of time that they do the same with Logan Couture. You mentioned his ability to fill out the peripherals as well. And he's one of those guys, Steele, you and I look at this a lot when we talk on this show, is players that with a change of scenery, especially to a winner, this guy's value definitely goes up, because he's going to slot in there in a team's top 6, and it's going to be on a good squad on their way to hopefully a deep Stanley Cup run, because the price is probably going to be pretty high for a guy of his caliber. The only thing and caveat is obviously his health.
Yeah, exactly. If he stays healthy and he gets traded, the fantasy value goes up, and what goes up as well is also big time bets. We're going to get to that very, very soon. But this episode is also brought to you by Jace Medical. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jace Medical offers the Jace Case. The Jace Case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you the peace of mind so that you are not just hoping that you have access to medication in an emergency. Jace Medical makes sure you have the medication on hand, and Jace Medical is just very, very simple to use. You go online, fill out the form, and then you get prescription life-saving medications right to your doorstep. That the Jace Case gives you peace of mind. They handle everything from the online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. Don't get caught unprepared. Save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jace Medical, plus an additional $20 off by using code LOCKEDON at checkout on jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com, promo code LOCKEDON. Again, that's JASE medical.com, promo code LOCKEDON.
What's up, guys? Trey Matthews of Locked On Devils here, and let me tell you something about Discover. If you like using your debit over credit, I just learned about something that's definitely a game changer. Discover Cashback Debit. It's a checking account that rewards everyone with cashback on everyday purchases. That means you can get cashback on NHL tickets or head-to-toe hockey gear to make this season a total win. Check out eligibility and terms at discover.com/cashbackdebit. Discover Bank, member FDIC.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to hit the subscribe, hit the follow button, leave a 5-star review. We appreciate all that love and support you show us every single day, Monday through Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning. Thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode. And in return, hopefully Flip and I are giving you some winning bets here with big-time bets. I'll throw it over to the big guy himself, the guy who does it better than anybody, big-time bets. What's your first pick of the night?
Dusting off the old pad, pal. And you know what? I'm just going to ream off all three and keep this puppy tight because I'm going with my first same game parlay, big flip, triple dip of the year. And it's not just because the Leafs are taking on the Montreal Canadiens. And it's not just because I'm absolutely fired up. Let's dig into the numbers a little bit. Number one, Austin Matthews kills it on opening nights. This is a fact. He entered the year as entered his career as a stud. We know what happened, which he did to the Ottawa Senators, which I'm pretty sure they're still butthurt over. He always comes out big in the first couple of games of the year. Yeah, can he get streaky? But he is ready to go this year, Steele. And I'm going to back up everything you and I have said about Austin Matthews by putting my money where my mouth is. So number one, Leafs on the money line. Minus 295. I know there's no value there, but that's why I'm going to parlay it with my other two picks. Number two, over 6.5 at a minus 115. I know this is actually going against the trends of these games. 7 of the last 10 head-to-head between these two clubs have gone under the number. The Montreal Canadiens are an improved club, especially offensively with Cole Caulfield healthy. I think they're going to be fired up to play their rival, just like the Maple Leafs are. And you know the Maple Leafs have to pay the piper early in this season, Steele. I think they come out and blow the doors off the Canadiens in an offensive way. I think, actually, the Habs might keep this one a little bit close, but that's even better for my over. So I'm liking my over at minus 115 to bump my odds up. And lock of the night, baby. Number 34. Anytime goal. And let me hit you with the stats here. 31 career games, regular season against the Habs, 24 goals and 19 assists for Austin Matthews for 42 points. I'm loving the triple dip. I'm loving the same game parlay. Matthews gets this team off on the right foot in a big, big way. I would also take him over total points, over 1.5. I see a multi-point game coming for 34, but those are my 3 bets of the night, Steele. And if I had to have a lock, it would be Matthews anytime goal scorer.
Back-to-back flip triple dips to start off the season. Absolutely love it. Love all 3 of those picks, by the way. I've got one of them in my lineup here as well.
Drinking the Kool-Aid, Steele. I'm drinking
the Kool-Aid for sure. Oilers on the money line at minus 162 to start the season against the Vancouver Canucks. They're on the road, but you can't deny that Connor McDavid and Draisaitl just have that dog in them. So Oilers money line minus 162 to start with. Second pick of the night, Flames and Jets under 6.5 goals at minus 128. I think obviously everyone knows my opinion on Connor Hellebuck. He's an absolute stud, one of the best goaltenders in the league. I think Jakob Markstrom's going to start off hot. He needs to start off hot to get his confidence back. I see an under in a very physical game against the Flames and Jets. And my lock of the night might be a little bit of a cop-out, but I'm with you on this one. Maple Leafs money line versus Canadiens, minus 295. Okay. The odds are not there, but the Maple Leafs are going to come out hot against their rivals, and they're going to absolutely dominate it. Parlay all 3 of those together, like Flip just said. Bump up the odds, juice up the odds.
Or even just add it to another one with the other picks you're playing. Because, look, yeah, of course. And I even reamed off the stats about Montreal keeping it close against Toronto. But I think that this is one of those tipping point moments for this franchise, Steele. And I think you're going to see the absolute best from 34 and the top 4. And, yeah, of course, I'm bringing in the Kool-Aid heavy, but this is a much better team. Montreal is still in a rebuild. Yeah, they got a lot better. Yeah, there's some really interesting young pieces. Cole Caulfield is back. We like Sam Montembeault. But let's be clear here. the better team is the home team in this situation. By the way, your bet with Edmonton might be my favorite one of all of yours. Edmonton has a 7-3-0 record against Vancouver in their last 10 games as well. Pressure's on in Edmonton as well, baby. And does that equate to them performing right out of the gate? No, but I'm good with riding with these angles because, as you and I said yesterday, this can be a very bumpy ride to start the season in terms of bets. So make sure you're dialing it back and tapping into the pod every single day.
Staying tuned in Monday through Friday is what you got to be doing to stay locked in and locked on this entire fantasy hockey season. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Make sure you're tuning in Monday through Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube. Continue hitting the subscribe, hit the follow button. We appreciate that. Thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day. Good luck with all your bets out there, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.
Hey, Prime members, you can listen to this Locked On podcast ad-free on Amazon Music. Download the Amazon Music app today.